The $200 million deal collapsed before I finished my first cup of coffee. My phone rang while I was still in my kitchen, the screen lighting up with an unfamiliar number I already recognized. I didn't answer at first. It rang again. When I picked up, I didn't even have time to speak. Helga, the CEO said, breathless. What did you do? I closed my eyes. Good morning to you too, Daniel. You know exactly what I'm talking about, he snapped. Grand Ridge terminated the agreement. Terminated. Do you have any idea what you've done to this company? I waited for him to finish. He didn't. They pulled the entire deal, he continued, words tumbling over each other now. $200 million. The board is already calling. I need you to fix this. Now. I can't. I said. There was a pause, sharp and stunned. You can't, he repeated. You were the one who handled them. You built that relationship. Yes, I said calmly. I did, then call them back. I already spoke to them, his voice dropped. What did you say? I told them the truth. I replied. That I was fired 3 days ago. Silence. Then, incredulous laughter. That's not funny. I'm not joking. You were terminated over a procedural violation, Daniel said, his tone hardening. That has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this, I said. I was their primary liaison. You knew that. You signed off on that. You were fired because you made an unauthorized decision, he shot back. You gave a client a $100 voucher without asking me. Yes, I said. To close a $200 million deal? You don't get to decide that, he said. You don't get to act like you're bigger than this company. I took a breath. I didn't act bigger. I acted responsibly. And you fired me for it. Another pause. This one longer. You could have waited, he said finally. You could have kept quiet. I didn't call them to hurt you, I said. I called them because I didn't want them finding out halfway through implementation that the person who built everything was gone. That deal is dead because of you, he said. No, I replied. It was already dying. I just stopped pretending otherwise. I ended the call before he could speak again. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. While inspired by real workplace dynamics and familiar power struggles, all characters, companies, and events have been crafted for storytelling purposes. Each narrative is designed to explore accountability, consequence, and the cost of underestimating people whose work holds everything together. I set my phone face down on the table and stared at it for a moment, letting the silence settle. 3 days earlier, I had walked out of that office carrying a cardboard box and my dignity. Now the consequences were finally catching up, and Chapter 2 was already waiting to be written. Why would a company punish success instead of protecting it? 3 days earlier, before the phone calls and the silence, I had still been their senior client lead. 11 months into the Grand Ridge deal, my calendar had stopped belonging to me. Every call, every revision, every delay came through my desk. Legal sent questions to me. Compliance waited on my answers. Even Daniel routed client updates through me when it suited him. You're the glue on this one, Helga, he'd said once, half joking. Just keep it moving. I did more than keep it moving. I learned how Grand Ridge thought. I learned which concerns were real and which ones were theater for their board. I learned that their operations chief, Marissa Cole, hated surprises but respected follow-through. The voucher came up during our final negotiation call. Marissa sighed and said, I've been staring at revisions for 6 hours. I need 5 minutes before we go line by line again. I said, take the break, I'll handle it. I ordered the voucher without asking anyone, $100. It went directly to their team, labeled as a courtesy for extended negotiations. When Marissa came back, her tone had changed. Thank you, she said. That tells me a lot, about trust, about priorities. The next morning, Daniel called me into his office. What's this? He asked, tapping the expense report with 2 fingers. A client courtesy, I said. It helped close the remaining points. You don't get to decide that, he said. You don't make financial gestures without my approval. It wasn't about the money, I replied. It was about momentum. He leaned back, eyes narrowing. This company has a structure, Helga. Clients don't get trained to expect special treatment. They expect continuity, I said. They ask that I remain their primary liaison through implementation. That's in the notes you approved. That doesn't give you authority, he snapped. No, I said evenly. It gives me responsibility. Daniel stood. You're confusing results with permission. That was the moment I understood. The voucher wasn't the problem. Control was. What happens when ego matters more than outcomes? Daniel shut the door behind me and didn't ask me to sit. I've reviewed the expense, he said, and I want to be very clear about something. I folded my hands. I'm listening. You do not make decisions without asking me, he said. Not financial ones, not symbolic ones, none. It was a $100 voucher, I said. It resolved the last sticking point. That's not the issue, he snapped. The issue is that you acted like you didn't need approval. I acted like the deal mattered, I replied. We were days away from signature. The client needed reassurance, not process. Daniel shook his head slowly, as if I were disappointing him. You think results excuse behavior. I think responsibility requires judgment, I said. They trusted me because I've been consistent for 11 months. He stepped closer. Trust does not outrank hierarchy. I wasn't undermining you, I said. I was protecting the company. You don't get to decide what protects this company. He said, I do. There it was, clean, undeniable. I documented everything. I continued. The client asked for continuity. They expect me to lead implementation. If I'm not there, that affects I'm done discussing hypotheticals. Daniel cut in. Your role is to execute, not interpret. I took a breath. Then you should have said that earlier. He stared at me for a long second, then reached for a folder on his desk. This ends now, he said. I'm terminating your employment effective immediately. I didn't move. Over a voucher. Over insubordination, he corrected. Over thinking you're indispensable. There's no transition plan, I said. No handoff. The deal, you're replaceable, he said. Anyone could finish this. The words landed harder than the termination itself. Security will deactivate your access by end of day, he added. Human resources will follow up. I nodded once. Understood. As I reached the door, he spoke again. You should have asked. I paused. Hand on the handle. You should have listened. I walked out knowing the signature was still days away and I would not be there when it happened. What does it feel like to lose everything in silence? I went back to my desk without speaking to anyone. My access still worked, but I knew it wouldn't for long. I packed slowly, not because I needed the time, but because I needed to stay steady. Jennifer from compliance glanced over the top of her monitor. Her mouth opened, then closed. She didn't say my name. She didn't need to. Are you okay? She finally whispered. I will be, I said, just not here. She nodded, eyes already dropping back to her screen. As I carried my box down the aisle, conversations stopped. Chairs shifted. Phones rang louder than usual. People looked everywhere except at me. They weren't cruel. They were careful. I had seen this walk before. I just never imagined it would be mine. Near the elevators. Mark from legal cleared his throat. Helga, he said quietly. If there's anything I can do. There isn't, I said. But thank you. He looked relieved and ashamed at the same time. Outside the building, my phone buzzed. An automated message confirmed my benefits would end at the close of the month. Health coverage, disability, everything tied to the title Daniel had just erased. I sat on a bench and stared at the screen. I was not new. I was not cheap. And I was no longer protected. For 6 years, my name had opened doors. Now it was attached to a termination no one would explain kindly. I thought about how quickly reputations turned, about how often competence got rewritten as disobedience once it became inconvenient. My phone buzzed again. A calendar reminder from 3 days earlier. Final implementation alignment call, Grand Ridge, Monday. I stared at it until the screen went dark. I could say nothing and let them discover the truth when it was too late. Or I could speak now and accept whatever followed. I stood up with the box still in my arms, knowing the quiet had already made its choice. Is honesty still professional when it destroys a deal? I waited until the afternoon before making the call, not because I was afraid of the client, but because I was afraid of myself. Anger would have been easy. Silence would have been safer. I needed to sound like neither. Marissa Cole answered on the second ring. Helga, she said. I was just reviewing the final timeline. I won't be on that timeline, I said. She paused. What do you mean I'm no longer with the company? I said. My role ended 3 days ago. Another pause, sharper this time. Ended how I was terminated, I said. Effective immediately. The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing change. You're the primary liaison, she said slowly. That was non-negotiable. I know, I replied. That's why I'm calling. This wasn't mentioned. She said, no one reached out. They may not have realized the risk yet, I said. But I didn't want you discovering it mid-implementation. Why were you terminated, she asked. I made a judgment call during negotiations, I said. Leadership disagreed. For the voucher, she said flatly. Yes, that was your decision, she said. Your accountability. Yes. Marissa exhaled. And they let you go days before signature. Yes. I waited. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain my feelings. I let the facts sit where they belonged. That changes everything, she said finally. I understand, I said. Whatever decision you make. I wanted it to be informed. We built this around you, she said. Around continuity. I know, I said. And I'm sorry for the position this puts you in. Her tone hardened. You didn't put us in this position. I heard keys tapping on her end now. Notes being taken. Calculations starting. I need to speak with my team, she said. And with legal. Of course, I replied. Before she hung up, she added, thank you for telling me yourself. When the line went dead, I set my phone down and stared at it, knowing the truth had already begun doing its work. What scares clients more than losing money? Marissa called the next morning. She didn't waste time on greetings. We've reviewed the situation, she said. And I need to be very clear. I'm listening, I replied. You were identified as primary liaison through implementation, she said. That condition was documented and acknowledged. Yes, I said. It was. They terminated you without notice, she continued. No transition. No equivalent replacement named. That's correct. This isn't about the voucher, she said. This is about execution risk. I understand. I said. We have regulatory exposure. She went on. Complex integrations. Tight deadlines. We don't swap leadership days before signature and hope for the best. There was a click. Then another voice joined the line. Helga. This is Robert Klein, the man said. I oversee operations. Good morning, I said. Good morning, he replied. We've reviewed the continuity clause. The one tied to implementation leadership, I said. Yes, he confirmed. It gives us the right to pause or terminate if key personnel changes prior to execution. And you're exercising that right? I said, we are, he said, effective immediately. I felt the weight of the words, even though I'd expected them. We're issuing formal notice today, Robert continued. This decision was not emotional. It was unanimous. Marissa returned. Your company underestimated what trust actually costs, she said. We won't. I appreciate you being direct. I said. We appreciate that you were, she replied. You didn't have to call us. I thought you deserved to know. I said. You were right, she said. And for what it's worth, this wasn't your failure. I know, I said quietly. After the call ended, an email arrived less than 10 minutes later. Subject line, notice of termination. No threats, no accusations. Just clean language and careful math. It wasn't chaos, it was consequence. Applied with precision. What happens when leadership mistakes are exposed all at once? The first call came from a number I didn't recognize. Helga, a woman said. Her voice careful. This is Andrea Walsh from the board. I sat up. Good afternoon. We're conducting an internal review, she said. I'm calling to understand the sequence of events surrounding your termination. You'd need to speak to Daniel for his rationale. I said. We will, she replied. But we need the timeline. I gave it to her. No opinions, no commentary, dates, decisions, consequences. Thank you, she said when I finished. That's all for now. Within hours, messages started coming in. A former client texted, heard about Grand Ridge. Are things stable over there? Another paused a renewal call scheduled for the following week. Then Daniel called. Helga, he said, forcing calm. We need to talk. There's nothing left to discuss. I said. You don't understand the position this puts us in, he said. Other clients are asking questions. I'm not surprised, I replied. This doesn't have to end badly, he said. We can correct course. You already did, I said. You corrected me out of the company. He exhaled sharply. We're willing to reinstate you. I waited. Same role. He continued. Same compensation. We'll document it as a misunderstanding, and the review I asked, Internal, he said, contained. Then nothing changes, I said. His tone hardened. You're being inflexible. I'm being consistent, I replied. Think carefully, he said. This is your career. My career didn't disappear when you fired me, I said. It just stopped belonging to you. The line went quiet. We'll be in touch. He said, I doubt that, I replied. When the call ended, I felt it clearly. Control was slipping from his hands, and he could feel it. What if walking away creates more opportunity than staying ever could? Marissa asked for a call the following afternoon. This time, she wasn't alone. Helga, she said. I'd like you to meet Thomas Reed. Good to speak with you, a man added. I oversee strategic partnerships. I'm listening, I said. We didn't terminate the agreement lightly, Thomas said. We did it because the risk profile changed overnight. I understand, I replied. Marissa picked it up. What we didn't expect was how quickly the gap became visible. You mean implementation leadership, I said. Yes, she said, and credibility. Thomas continued. We have a problem now. We still need the capability. We just no longer trust the structure it was attached to. There it was, clean, direct. We'd like to discuss a different arrangement, Marissa said. One that involves you directly. I didn't speak. This isn't about sympathy, Thomas added. It's about alignment. You built the framework. You understand the risk. You know where failure actually happens. You're asking me to consult, I said. Partner, Marissa corrected. Long term, through your firm, Thomas said. With authority over execution, I took a breath. That's a significant shift. It is, he agreed. And it comes with exposure. Legal complexity, Marissa said. Public scrutiny and responsibility, Thomas added. If it works, the credit is shared. If it fails, it won't be deflected. I would need counsel. I said, of course. Marissa replied. We've already prepared a draft. The document arrived an hour later. Clear language, defined scope, compensation tied to outcomes, not promises. My attorney reviewed it that evening. They're serious, she said. This isn't a favor, it's a bet. I closed my laptop and sat still for a moment. The risk was real, so was the control. For the first time since Daniel said my name like a warning, the future felt deliberate again. Is losing power worse than losing a job? Daniel wasn't fired. Not right away. Andrea called me again 2 weeks after the termination notice went public. The board has concluded its review, she said. I wanted you to hear this directly. I appreciate that, I replied. Daniel will remain with the company, she continued. But his authority has been restructured. Restructured how I asked. He no longer signs contracts, she said. All client-facing decisions now route through an executive committee. I pictured it instantly. A man who lived on control reduced to forwarding emails. That decision wasn't symbolic. Andrea added. It was corrective. I understand, I said. Word traveled quickly in quieter ways. A former colleague texted, he's not invited to negotiations anymore. Another said, people stopped looping him in. The industry noticed. Invitations disappeared. Panels filled without his name. Calls went unanswered. Months later, I saw him at a regional conference. He stood near the edge of the room, drink untouched, watching conversations he no longer entered. He noticed me and hesitated, then approached. Helgas, he said. His voice lacked its old certainty. I heard you landed well. I did, I replied. He nodded. They don't let me decide much anymore. I know, I said. I never thought it would go this far. He said. I did, I answered. Because it wasn't about the voucher. He looked at me then, truly looked, as if seeing the cost for the first time. I lost control, he said quietly. No, I replied. You gave it up. We stood there a moment longer, then someone called my name from across the room. When I turned back, Daniel had already stepped away, blending into the background he used to command. What does it mean to stand in your worth without asking? The agreement was 3 pages long and written in language that didn't flinch. Thomas slid it across the table and said, if you're comfortable, we can finalize today. I read the final clause once more. Authority over execution, direct accountability, clear boundaries, I'm comfortable. I said. Marissa watched me sign. We're not giving you a title to manage appearances, she said. We're giving you room to do the work. That's all I ever wanted, I replied. When I handed the pen back, Thomas nodded. Then we're aligned. Later that afternoon, Daniel's name appeared in my inbox one last time. No subject line. One sentence. I heard you signed. I didn't respond. The empire he thought he ran hadn't fallen because of a voucher. It hadn't collapsed because of a phone call or a clause buried in a contract. It fell because arrogance mistook control for leadership and permission for value. At my new desk, a junior analyst hesitated in the doorway. "Helga," she said, "do you want me to wait for approval before updating the client?" I looked up. "What's your judgment?" She swallowed. "It needs to be done today." "Then do it," I said. "And document why." She nodded, relief crossing her face, and walked away with purpose. That night, I locked up last, not because I had to prove anything, but because I chose to finish what I started. The work followed me now, not the other way around. Knowing your value does not require permission, applause, or a title. It requires the courage to act responsibly, the discipline to tell the truth, and the strength to walk away when respect becomes conditional. At 8:42 in the morning, the system stopped not with alarms or explosions, but with a quiet that spread from screen to screen like breath being held too long. "I need an answer, now." That was Richard Hale, the CEO, his voice cracking through the executive conference room. Someone said, "Payments just froze." Another voice followed, thinner, scared. "Compliance dashboards are locked." Then Richard's chair scraped back. "Where is Ann Walker?" No one answered. "I want to know," Richard said, louder, stepping toward his son, "why the incident owner is not in the room." Bradley laughed, sharp and wrong, because she thought eating lunch mattered more than Richard grabbed Bradley's tie and yanked him close. "Why did you fire her downstairs?" I was still holding my lunch container when my phone went silent. Not buzzing, not ringing. Silent. That was when I knew. I didn't break anything. I said to no one in particular. I just stopped. "My name is Ann Walker. I am the Senior Incident Systems Architect here, or I was until 12 hours earlier, when Bradley decided that optics mattered more than understanding." I heard the elevators open. Voices rushed past. Someone swore. Someone else said my name like it was a missing tool. I told her to leave. Bradley said somewhere above me. She was sitting there eating while the system was still red. Red did not mean dead. Red meant contained. Red meant we were holding the line. No one had asked me before removing me. No one had checked the protocols I wrote. No one had asked who held the emergency override during containment. I closed the lid on my lunch and set it on the table. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I stood, picked up my bag, and walked toward the exit as screens across the building began to lock themselves. One layer at a time, exactly as designed. 12 hours earlier, the night shift had not yet gone home. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. While inspired by real workplace dynamics, power imbalances, and corporate pressure, all characters, companies, and events in this narrative are fictional. This story is told to explore accountability, dignity, and what happens when people confuse authority with understanding. How long can a system survive on exhaustion alone? "We're not chasing ghosts anymore," Maya said, her voice hoarse through the headset. The cascade stopped. I leaned closer to the monitor. "Confirmed transaction flow." "Delayed," she replied, "but consistent." "Good," I said. "Then containment is holding." It was past midnight. I had stopped checking the clock after the second pot of coffee. Around us, the team moved in slow, careful motions, like people afraid a sudden gesture might undo everything we had just stabilized. Evan rubbed his eyes and asked, "Why is the dashboard still red?" "Because red doesn't mean dying," I said. "It means guarded. We don't flip to green until every dependency stops throwing edge errors. So we're safe." He pressed. "We're breathing," I said. "That's different." My hands shook when I reached for my water bottle. I noticed it then, the hollow feeling behind my ribs, the dull pressure in my head. I hadn't eaten since early morning. "I'm stepping out for 3 minutes," I said. "Do not touch the override queue." Maya looked up. "Ann, you sure I'll be 10 steps away?" I said. "If anything spikes, you yell." I walked to the side table and opened the container I'd packed the night before. Half a sandwich. Cold. Perfect. Behind me, someone muttered. "Dashboard's still red." I didn't turn around. "It's supposed to be. Executives won't like that," Evan said. "They don't have to like it," I replied. "They just have to not break it." I took 2 bites. My hand steadied almost immediately. "That's him," Maya said quietly. I looked up. Bradley Sterling stood near the doorway, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the screen. Not the logs, not the error traces. The color. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The way his jaw tightened told me everything. I closed the container and stood, wiping my hands on a napkin. "Containment is stable," I said clearly. "We're not out of danger, but we're no longer hemorrhaging." Bradley's gaze flicked from the red dashboard to my lunch, then back to me. He smiled like he had just found the problem. When a crisis looks bad on paper, someone always decides optics matter more than outcomes. Bradley Sterling didn't knock. He never did. "What is this?" he said, pointing at the main dashboard. "Red across the board, it's containment," I replied. "The cascade stopped 40 minutes ago. We're stabilizing dependencies before he cut me off. I don't care what you call it. Red means failure." Maya straightened in her chair. "Sir, transactions are consistent. We're delaying to prevent." Bradley lifted a hand without looking at her. "I wasn't asking you." His eyes locked on me. "And you," he said, his voice sharpening. "How can you sit there eating while the system is down?" "I stepped away for 3 minutes," I said evenly. "My team has been awake for over 20 hours. We're holding the line, holding the line." He laughed once, loud enough to turn heads. "This company does not pay people to hold lines. It pays them to fix problems. We are fixing it," I said. "But not by rushing changes just to make the screen look green." Bradley glanced around the room, as if taking inventory of witnesses. "What I see," he said, "is someone comfortable enough to take a break during a crisis." "That's not what's happening," Evans said quietly. Bradley snapped his fingers toward him. "Stay out of this." He stepped closer to me. "Commitment matters here. Optics matter. And right now, you look disengaged." I felt the room tighten. No one spoke. "Effective immediately," Bradley said. "You are removed from this incident." Maya's head jerked up. "You can't just I can," he said. "I'm making the call." I stood slowly. "You're pulling the incident owner during active containment. I'm pulling someone who doesn't understand urgency." He shot back. "Security." 2 guards appeared at the door, uncertain but already moving. Bradley didn't look away from me. "Turn in your badge. Leave the room." I unclipped it and placed it on the table. As I walked past the monitors, I heard Evan whisper, "Anne, wait." I didn't. "What is an incident owner and why does it matter before you walk me out?" I said, keeping my voice steady. "Someone needs to understand what you just did." Bradley didn't slow. "You're not in charge anymore. I am the incident owner," I said. "That role exists for one reason. During containment, only one person holds emergency override access." He scoffed. "That's technical jargon. It's policy." I said, "Approved. Documented." He stopped and turned. "Show me." "I don't have to," I replied. "You approved the email." Janet from HR hurried over, breathless. "Bradley, what's going on?" "She's being removed," he said. She was disengaged. Janet looked at me. "Anne, do you still have system access?" "Not once I'm escorted out," I said, "per protocol." Janet frowned. "What protocol?" "That's the problem," I said quietly. Bradley folded his arms. "You're telling me the entire system depends on one person?" "No," I said, "it depends on one role. A role I asked to share." When Janet asked, "Twice last quarter," I said. "I requested cross-training and a backup incident lead. I was told it wasn't cost-efficient." Bradley waved a hand. "We can't overstaff every contingency." "You didn't staff it at all," I said. "You deferred it." Janet flipped through her tablet. "I don't see any record of override access ownership, because it was logged under incident governance." I said, "Not HR." Bradley's jaw tightened. "Enough. Walk her out." Janet hesitated. "Bradley, if she's right, she's not," he snapped. "We have a team." "A team without authority," I said. "Once I leave, the system will follow its safety rules." He leaned in. "You're threatening the company now. I'm explaining it," I said. Security stepped closer. I picked up my bag as they led me away. I heard Janet say, "Bradley, should we designate a new incident owner?" He didn't answer. The elevator doors closed, and with them, the last human hand on the controls. Is stepping back the same as sabotage? I stood just outside the building and took a breath. My phone buzzed once, then stopped. That mattered. I opened my laptop on the bench by the entrance and logged in for the last time. Not to fix anything, not to touch production, just to close what policy required me to close. I ended my emergency override session. A confirmation prompt appeared. Incident owner privileges will be released. I clicked confirm. My phone rang immediately. It was Maya. Anne, she said, too fast. My access just dropped. I know, I said. I'm no longer authorized. You didn't do anything, right? I did exactly what the policy says. I replied, nothing more. There was a pause. Then, softer. They're saying you walked out? I was escorted out. I said, that's different. I typed one message and sent it to the incident channel. I'm no longer authorized to intervene. Please do not let this fall on you. 3 dots appeared. Then Evan's reply. They're asking who holds the override now. No one, I said out loud. Bradley's name flashed on my screen. I let it ring. Security stepped outside, watching me without pretending not to. I closed the laptop and stood inside, somewhere far above me. The system began doing what it was designed to do when human authority disappeared. Non-essential processes paused. Right access narrowed. Safeguards tightened. One layer at a time. My phone rang again. This time it was Janet from HR. Anne, she said, breathless. Are you still nearby? I'm leaving, I said. Can you come back for a moment? I can't, I replied. You removed me. A longer pause. Then, we didn't realize, I explained. I said, in the hallway. I walked toward the street as alerts started cascading through group chats I was no longer part of. Not failures. Locks. Behind me, the building hummed, quieter than before, waiting for instructions that would not come. Which system fails first when no one is allowed to touch the controls? It started with payments. Transactions are queuing. Someone said over the bridge. They're not failing. They're just waiting. For what? Another voice snapped. For clearance, Maya replied. Right access narrowed. Evan cut in. Tight. I can see the rule set. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do when there's no incident authority. A chair scraped. Override it, Bradley said. I can't. Evan answered. The override requires incident owner credentials. Then assign a new one, Bradley said. Janet's voice came in from legal, sharp with panic. That's not instant. There's documentation. There's audit trail. We can't just compliance chimed next. Reporting jobs just halted. If we don't generate the filings by end of day, we miss regulatory deadlines. Inventory followed. Numbers aren't syncing. Warehouses are frozen. We can't release shipments without validated counts. Bradley exhaled hard. This is unacceptable. This is safety, Maya said. The system is preventing bad data from propagating, and it's costing us. Bradley shot back. A new voice joined. Older, measured, the CFO. Every hour payments are paused. Settlements roll. We have contractual penalties written in plain language. How much? Bradley asked. Enough that the board will ask why we let this happen. Silence. Then a lower murmur as executives began talking over each other. Can we bring her back? Someone asked. Janet hesitated. She was removed from the incident. Removed? How? The CFO pressed. Bradley answered before she could. I made the call. Another pause. Heavier this time. Maya spoke carefully. Until an incident owner is restored, the system will continue to lock non-essential pathways. Next layer is risk scoring, Evan added. After that, customer-facing services will degrade. Bradley slammed his hand on the table. So what are we supposed to do? No one answered immediately. Then, quietly, from the far end of the line, someone said the thing no one wanted to say. Where's Anne? What happens when accountability finally reaches the top? I wasn't in the room when it happened, but I heard it later from 3 different people, and none of them disagreed on the moment that changed everything. The payments are still frozen, the CFO said. Compliance missed the first reporting window. Richard Hale stood at the head of the table, jaw tight. Why am I hearing this now? Janet answered carefully. Because the system entered automated safety behavior after the incident owner was removed. Richard turned. Removed by whom? No one spoke at first. Then Bradley cleared his throat. I made a judgment call. Richard looked at him. Explain. She was sitting there eating, Bradley said. The dashboard was still red. The team needed urgency. Maya's voice cut in from the end of the table. The dashboard was red because we were in containment. Anne explained that. Bradley snapped back. Optics matter in a crisis. Richard's hand came down hard on the table. Results matter. She looked disengaged. Bradley insisted. I pulled her off the incident. The room went quiet. You pulled the incident owner, Richard said slowly. During active containment, yes, Bradley said. I had the authority. Richard took one step forward, then another. He grabbed Bradley by the tie and yanked him close, his voice no longer controlled. Why did you fire her? No one moved, no one breathed. Richard released him and turned to the board. Did anyone here approve this? Chairs shifted. Heads shook. The CFO spoke again. This decision directly triggered the system lock. We are exposed on multiple fronts. Richard nodded once. Then this is no longer a technical issue. It's a governance failure. He looked back at his son. You don't get to confuse pressure with leadership. Bradley opened his mouth, then closed it. Richard straightened. Restore the incident owner or explain to the board why you cannot. Janet hesitated. She's already left the building. Richard's eyes hardened. Then we fix what we broke. And for the first time since the outage began, the room understood exactly who had caused the collapse. What do you say when the people who broke everything suddenly need you? My phone rang while I was halfway home. Janet's name came up first. Anne, she said, skipping pleasantries. We need you to come back, just temporarily. I was removed, I replied. That wasn't temporary. This is different, she said. The system, I know what the system is doing. I said, it's following the rules you approved. A second call cut in before she could answer. Legal this time. A man named Thomas I'd met exactly once in 6 years. We're reviewing the logs, he said. They show no malicious action on your part. Because there wasn't any, I said. The lock initiated automatically, he continued. Based on loss of incident authority. That's what containment mode does. I said. It protects the company when leadership removes the person holding the controls. There was a pause. Then Thomas said. The CEO would like to speak with you. Richard Hale's voice was calm, but stretched thin. Anne, I need you back in the building. I can't, I said. You let your son remove me during an active incident. That decision is being addressed, he said. Right now, I'm asking you to help us stabilize. I didn't destabilize anything, I said. I followed policy. Your system locked itself. We understand that now, he said. Then you understand why I won't step back into the same structure, I replied. Not as an employee, not under someone who can overrule protocol because he doesn't like how it looks. Richard exhaled. What would it take? Clear authority, I said. Written, independent, and protection for the team you put in an impossible position. Silence, then, quieter. If we agree, I'll review it, I said. I won't rush it. Another pause. Longer this time. We'll call you back, Richard said, after the line went dead. I watched a new message come through from Maya. They're arguing about who actually caused this. I set the phone face down and kept walking, knowing the answer was already in the logs they were finally reading. Can a company admit its real mistake? They didn't call it an investigation at first. They called it a review, as if softer language could soften what had happened. Thomas from legal spoke carefully when he called me. An external firm has been brought in. Governance, risk, incident response. They want to understand sequence and authority. I already sent them the logs. I said, time-stamped, immutable. Yes, he replied. They've read them. A day later, Janet joined the call, her voice stripped of corporate polish. The findings are direct. She didn't sound surprised. She sounded relieved. The incident owner was removed without cause during active containment. She read. That action violated crisis protocol and triggered automated safety behavior. Thomas continued. The decision was made based on appearance rather than system stability. I let that sit, and I asked. There was a pause. Then Richard Hale spoke. My son will no longer hold any operational authority. Effective immediately, permanently. I said nothing. We are restructuring incident governance, he went on. Your original framework will be adopted in full. Independent authority, clear escalation boundaries, no discretionary removals. That should have been done years ago, I said. Yes, he agreed quietly. Janet added, no one on your team will be disciplined. The review explicitly states they acted appropriately under impossible constraints. That matters, I said. They were blamed for decisions they didn't make. I know, Richard said. That ends now. The call ended without ceremony, no apologies, no grand gestures, just documented consequences moving through a system that finally understood what it had ignored. That evening, Maya texted me. They took his access. All of it. I read it once. Then put the phone down. Somewhere inside the company, new rules were being written with my language in them, not as a favor, but as a correction. And for the first time since the night of the outage, the silence felt earned. What does winning look like when no one applauds? I came back a month later with a visitor badge and a short contract. Independent crisis consultant. Clear authority. Clear limits. My name sat on the incident chart without anyone else's signature above it. Richard met me outside the operations floor. You'll have full autonomy during incidents, he said. No discretionary removals. No optics overrides. I don't need promises, I told him. I need them written. They are, he said, and handed me the manual. There it was. Printed in plain language, not buried in footnotes in a crisis. Protect the people protecting the system. Maya caught my eye from across the room. She smiled, small and real. They finally listened. She said, they finally read. I replied. The system ran quietly that morning, no alarms, no red banners screaming for attention. Evan leaned over and said, feels strange when nothing is broken. It's not strange, I said. It's what happens when people stop rushing. At noon, I went to the cafeteria. I stood in line, tray in hand. No one stared. No one whispered. Bradley's name wasn't spoken at all. That, more than anything, told me the lesson had landed. I sat by the window and opened my lunch, a sandwich, an apple. Simple, normal. Richard walked past, paused, then nodded once. He didn't stop. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Later that afternoon, Janet stopped by my desk. The team asked me to say thank you, she said, for holding the line and for not burning it down. I didn't save anything, I said. I just refused to be erased. She nodded and left. I finished my lunch and went back to work. The screen stayed green. The room stayed calm. The company kept moving. The lesson I carry with me is simple: respect costs nothing, but ignoring it is always expensive. When people are treated like disposable tools, systems eventually fail. When people are trusted, fed, and heard, the quiet work holds everything together.